Hello, y'all. This video is going to be about the reversal of the events and how we, as empathic people that have some level of empathy, whether it be a little or a lot, how even we can reverse the events of things. So, for example, one example I'll give is okay, you're having problems with someone or some people. A lot of times you just look at the aftermath of what happens. Okay, there's a dispute, there's some money that was not repaid or returned, whatever the events were that happened as a result. However, the first thing that you possibly did that sometimes you overlook and you don't consider as part of the events or the cycle of the abuse is the first thing that you did, the very first thing that you did, which is help the person. And see, this is the hard part when you have empathy because sometimes you don't have control of how the other person's going to react. So, okay, for example, in a money situation, you loan the person the money. Okay, the first step is that you were nice, you had empathy, and you saw a need. But the result that you got was they told you to F off. They said, F off, I'm not paying you. Now, someone that has empathy that you've loaned the money to, they may be late on the payment if they don't have it right at that moment. Even if a disagreement occurs, they're not going to tell you to F off, along with telling you they're not going to pay you your money. You see the difference? So it's how far the situation goes. But either way, the very first step in the events was your feeling that they needed something from you, feeling that there was a need, and you helping them. Okay, another example would be in situations where there's a crime committed. And narcissists do this all the time. And this is how they go into the cycle of blaming the victim, right? So a victim's harmed, whether they be male or female. So people that are victim shaming or trying to blame the victim may say something like, well, they shouldn't have befriended the person. They shouldn't have dated the person. They shouldn't have married the person. And that could be true. However, in the first part of what happened, this victim actually left the relationship, and this narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath stalked the victim, violated the victim, and kidnapped the victim. So in this instance, the victim was not engaging with the narcissist. They were kidnapped. But see, a lot of narcissists will leave that first part out because the total goal is to blame most of it on the victim. And that's because a lot of times these narcissists are actually loved. Sometimes the people that are defending them act the same way. Sometimes the people that are defending them have people just like that in their family immediate element. These are the same type of people that will tell their daughters and sons to stay with these abusers. Well, you know, it's best if you stay in this situation now because how y'all gonna make a living? So that's why the advice is that way, because a lot of times people that are among you have not completely left abusers alone. They didn't make that deal breaker like, look, I'm done. It's been 50 years dealing with this fool. And a lot of times these are very empathetic people that just genuinely feel sorry for the abuser. And they will talk to these abusers like they're mental patients. And in a case like that, I mean, that's your prerogative. As long as you are doing the number one safety tactic, and that's staying out of the physical presence of the abuser. However, some people will have enough empathy and be kind enough to at least have phone conversations with these abusers or emotional abusers. It's not always physical abuse, but just remember in narcissism, that first part of the story is often left out. Sometimes, even in law enforcement situations, medical situations, legal situations, that first part of that story will be left out. And in those cases, you need to speak up for yourself if possible and include that first part of the story because it's very relevant. Because we got to get off of this blaming the victim for everything. Because at the end of the day, that narcissist is accountable for what they do to other people. I mean, because a lot of times the victims, whether they be male or female, they think that these are genuinely good people. So you got to look at the motive and the intention of the victim. And then victims have to learn over time, sometimes the hard way, that these are not good people to have in their lives. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. So work on always knowing the beginning of the story. That will help you too. So if there's a situation where sometimes, something has occurred, see if you can go back a couple of steps to see what happened. And then you can pick up on your own patterns. Just like I had a recent situation where there's a family crisis that I'm going through, and I wasn't liking the result. So I had to evaluate my own actions, and what I found was that, yeah, there was a result. But that first thing I was doing was feeling sorry for that person, feeling like I had to include that person, feeling like something bad would come out of the person not being included. So it was hard, but I had to stop that first step. Putting myself in a situation where I was at locations with other relatives, though, but still, it's unsafe. It's unhealthy, not just necessarily unsafe, but definitely unhealthy. So you're going to struggle with this, especially when you kind of got a kind heart, y'all, and you naturally want to help that other person. It's just in your nature, but you got to stop the first step. And a lot of times the first step before the abuse occurs is you are thinking about somebody else and their needs, and you feel like you need to help this person. However, the problem is that person that you're helping doesn't feel the same way about you, and they're ungrateful. And that's when the explosion, the verbal abuse, and all of that will come, despite the fact that you were initially being nice, only to have empathy and compassion and sympathy for that individual that is being abusive. And what you don't want to do, especially with young people in the family, is enable them and make them think that it's okay to treat people that way. And the way you enable that and create these bigger monsters is by continuously allowing them to do it because you're being nice. You're allowing it because if you're helping them, because of your empathy and sympathy and compassion for them, and they're being abusive and ungrateful, you got to stop that first step. And I did it. I mastered it. The individual asked for my help for this situation. And I had already put some thought into it and figured out what my problem was. Not to say I would never help the person ever in life, but for this time I chose not to. I prayed. I continue my prayers like I should on a daily basis, and I think everything worked out fine. However, the result was there was no verbal attack upon me by this person because I removed the first step, which is feeling like I had to help them, or else that would not be the right thing to do. Oh, if I don't help them, that's just not right. I shouldn't do them like that. So remember, always put step 1 first, then step 2. Don't skip over that first step, because if you do that, you're going to ignore the pattern. And in narcissism, you got to recognize patterns. You got to recognize patterns to get out of these situations. You got to recognize patterns so you can use logic and reasoning. In all situations, never overlook a pattern. Patterns are real and they're there for a reason. And looking at patterns can protect you and others. Okay, I've been on this bike almost 11 minutes, y'all. I love y'all so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tune in for more. Bye.